Buddy. Today I'm just going to be discussing how I set up an app and made a Docker image that will run that app in a container. And we'll be also focusing on looking at how to push that image to Dockerhub, a central repository for Docker images. And then we will show kind of the versatility of being able to use Dockerhub then by pulling that same image down onto a different server. So we'll do that on a cloud platform like Google Cloud platform. So I started by building a repository in my GitHub. I set up a .circleci config YAML file to just have good practice of CD and continuous deployment. And also the most important part for obviously having a Docker image is having your Docker file. So I made a Docker image that would launch my app, and that would set up a container based on a requirements text. So I also have a requirements text here, which has Flask, which I'm using to launch my app, and then just a very simple application then just for a test. All right, so now that we have our repository built, we can just sample our application on our local machine. So just to make sure I'm up to date, we'll git pull from the repository, which I had already cloned. So everything's up to date. So the first thing we can do is just simply test the app locally. So by running python app.py, we can see it's running on this IP and port. So if we take this and we just go to a browser, we should be able to see the contents of what our app says. So hello world, the app works on local. Now let's test if we can just get out of this. So we know our app works, and let's just change what our application is saying. Hello world, the app works from within a container, and we'll just update that file. And so now we will take that updated app file and we will build a Docker image. So we can use this command line tool with Docker, and we can just call our Docker image like the name of our repository for now. So we'll call it Docker Cloud Demo. So now we can see that the image is now being built into a coherent Docker image. So now we obviously won't see any changes to the files in our directory, but if we wanted to look at what images we currently have, we'll see that the new repository, the new image that we just made has in fact been created with a specific image ID and a tag. And so now essentially what we want to do is we want to use that image to launch a container. And from then within that container, we want to see if our app works. So now we would do something, I guess we'd first look and see if there's any containers running. There are none. So now we'd want to deploy a container. And we can do something like use 5000 as the port, because that's what Flask uses. And Docker Cloud demo. So now we're running that, and we have confirmation that the container has been created, and we can check that here. So now we have a new container ID, and that's specifically running this image, which is the image we just built, and it's running our application program, and it's being exposed at port 5000. So we could curl this and see, and now we get confirmation that it's running the updated application file that we have, and we could also go to back to this port and on a web browser, and we'll see that it says hello world. The app is working from within the container. So now we have confirmation that our image is set up correctly. It was built correctly. It was built with the most up-to-date app version, and that app is working from within the container that we created. So all pretty cool stuff. And now I built a Docker push shell file. So if we open it up, we can just see that we denote our Docker path, which will correspond to a Dockerhub account and what we want that new Dockerhub image to be saved as. And essentially we're using this image that we have locally, and we want to push that to Dockerhub using our Docker path. So if we just keep that as it is, we can just run our Docker push file, and now we can see it is authenticating, and it's able to push our local image that we made to Dockerhub. And so now we're just getting confirmation that it's able to do that. And so we get a SHA hash showing the most recent updated image. So now we should be able to go to Dockerhub, and if I go to all my repositories, I can go to Docker Cloud demo, and we can see that we had a last push a few seconds ago, and so we can see that it's the latest image version was updated a few seconds ago here. We can really use the kind of lightweight availability of a container to simply pull the image from the Dockerhub registry, and then use that on any machine. So on Google Cloud Platform, we are working on a virtual machine here, and on the machine we can just look to see if there are any Docker images that exist. There are not, so we can pull from the specific image that we want, that we just made. And then as you can see, it is just pulling from the Dockerhub registry onto my virtual machine on the cloud. And it will take a little bit of time just to pull the entire contents of the image. Okay, so now we can use the Docker command line tool to look for images, and now we see we do indeed have our new image that we just pulled down from Dockerhub. And so now we're going to do the same thing that we did previously on the local machine. And specifically, we're going to launch a container from this Docker image. Okay, so now we got a confirmation, and we can check to see that our container is running. So now we see that our new container is running, the image that we pulled down from Docker registry, and it's going to be showing it on port 5000. So now we can just use the web preview, a nice feature on GCP shell, and we can use port 5000. And now we can see that our app is working correctly, and we could, proceed to make the app a lot more interesting. But now it's nice because we could, make changes to our app in our on our local machine, and then we could, push those new changes to our Docker image, to the Docker registry at Dockerhub, and essentially we could just, access that new updated Docker image and any updates we had to our application with this really easy process of just pulling the image down. All right, thank you for viewing this and for listening to me go over the process of how you make an application, put it into an image, push that image to Dockerhub, and then pull from the Dockerhub registry on a virtual machine in the cloud to then run that application. Hope you enjoyed.